Good morning, everyone. This is the first Sunday of 2024. So, Happy New Year. I hope this is a good year for you and for this Sangha. I continue to talk on this text, opening the hand of thought. This morning, I talked 3 paragraphs from second paragraph of page 154. Let me read the first paragraph, page 154. We need to remind ourselves of the clear distinction between personal conditioned self and universal original self. The personal self is what we usually think of as I. But if we peel away the skin of this individual conditioned self, we lay bare the original universal self. The personal self is always trying to fulfill its desires. This is the so-called karmic self. Human beings are born with brains, and we naturally have a tendency or karma that leads us to fabricate a maze of illusions in our minds. This is our individual self, but it is a big mistake to assume that this self is the whole self. The whole self appears when we strip away karmic illusions, and that means opening the hand of thought. This is original universal self. This is part of the section 3 of chapter 8. This is a part of Uchiyama Roshi's last lecture at Antaiji, right before he retired. And in this lecture, he talks about 7 points he had kept in his mind while he was the abbot of Antaiji for 10 years. And on the occasion of his retirement, he wanted to transmit these 7 points to his disciples. And so this is the third point within the 7 points. And the third point is Zazen must work concretely in our daily lives as the 2 practices, vow and repentance. The 3 minds, magnanimous mind, nurturing mind, and joyful mind. And as the realization of the saying, gaining is delusion, losing is enlightenment. So far, I talked about the part Uchiyama Roshi talked about gaining is delusion and losing is enlightenment. And in this paragraph, he talks about there are 2 self. That is a problem. What are the 2? And according to him, first self is, he said, we need to remind ourselves of the clear distinction between personal conditioned self. Personal conditioned self is a translation of his Japanese word serai no 自分、生来の自分。And next one, universal original self is 本来の自己。生 means to be born, or in this case, birth. So, lai means from since we are born. And jibun is self. Jibun is more common word we talk in our daily lives. I say, this is my jibun. And I can call other person a jibun. And jiko is a little bit formal word. And this honrai, this rai is the same kanji. This means to come, or to from a certain point. So in this case, this is since the self, since our birth. And this hon is origin or original. So honrai means original, from the original. That means even before our birth. And jiko is the self. This is the word Dogen used when he said to study the self is to forget the self. He used this jiko. And jibun means separation or portion. So this is kind of separated from others. But Dogen also used jiko and tako. Ko is self, and ji is one's own self, and tako is other self. So ko is not limited in jibun, this portion of life. So he said these two should be clearly distinguished. And usually in English, we call this a karmic self and original self or universal self or whatever. There are many English expressions for this one. And this one, karmic self or is the way we see this person in this case, from my birth. I was born at certain time in certain country and in certain family. That was already conditioned. And from there, that I was born in 1948. That was a certain time in the history of the world or history of Japan. So certain things happened. And because I was born in that family or in Japanese society in that year, I was conditioned, I was influenced when I grew. So because I was born in Japanese society, I was educated in Japanese language. So when I think I have to use Japanese language, that is conditioned. And I think most of you are thinking in English, but even now I'm thinking in Japanese and try to translate into English. So it's really different. Anyway, so this from my birth, I think this is me as Shohaku. And because I became a Buddhist, and I was ordained as a priest, so I call as my karmic self as a Japanese Buddhist priest. That is my karmic self. And the original self is even, I don't think I was there before I was born. There's no such thing, but that this is unconditioned. And these two are different according to Uchiyama Roshi. And when I read this, he wrote same kind of things in the book I first read when I was 17. And I didn't understand what is the difference, or is there such a difference or not. And when I started to study Buddhism at Komazawa University, I had a question. This sounds like atman and Brahman. Atman is a personal self, and there is a kind of a permanent thing, substance. And the entirety of this network is called Brahman. And this is also substance. And these are without defilement. And in Brahmanism or Upanishad before Shakyamuni, to see the oneness of self or Atman and Brahman is to be liberation. And that is a purpose of their religious life. And when we see, I read this kind of description in Uchiyama Roshi's writing, and this also appeared in Dogen's writing. For example, one bright jewel, opposite, Jinju Pokai. The entire 10 direction world is one bright jewel. It seems like this is one bright jewel, and this is the entire 10 direction world. So I wanted to understand what is the difference between this structure of Atman and Brahman and these two kinds of self. That was my question for many years. And when I talked about the part of this self, this book, when Uchiyama Roshi wrote about Zazen and the true self, this true self is the same as Hondai no Jiko. I talked about my understanding, what the difference between Atman, Brahman theory, and what Uchiyama Roshi and Dogen talks. And I think, I don't know, but I gave many lectures on this part. And someone transcribed my lectures on the true self. And based on that transcription, I wrote a book entitled A Structure of the Self in Mahayana. And in that book, I wrote my understanding of what are these two and what the difference between this teaching and Atman and Brahman theory. And I many times I talked about this, so you already heard, so you already know. In very simple way to explain the difference between these two kinds of self and Atman and Brahman is, in the case of Uchiyama Roshi or Dogen's expression, this is like 5 fingers and 1 hand. When I see this as a collection of 5 fingers, each finger are individual, different shape, different functions, and different names. So these are individuals. But when I see this as 1 hand, each finger as they are, it doesn't disappear, but each finger loses its uniqueness or individuality, but this functions simply as 1 hand. And not only, and within any finger, there's no such kind of self-nature or some kind of permanent substance, permanent or metaphysical substance. This is simply a collection of all different, many cells and bones. And the hand is a collection of these 5 fingers. And the 1 hand is a part of, my body. So there's no such substance. And Atman and Brahman are substance that is permanent and never disappear. But, all fingers are impermanent and no self and disappear. But for now, this is my thumb and it functions as thumb. And I am a Japanese Buddhist priest. So this is a unique thing. So I have to take care of these 5 skandhas and try to function as a good Japanese Buddhist priest. So individuality is there. But actually there's no such fixed individual or independent entity as Shohaku, as a Japanese Buddhist priest. This is simply a part of life, which is somehow appeared on this Earth, on this planet Earth, and developed for some ways. And now I am here, but I will disappear sooner or later, as that dinosaur disappeared. So this is there, and this is impermanent and collection of causes and conditions. And when Uchiyama Roshi talks about original self, this is unconditioned. That means before this life become Shohaku as individual person. But both are changing. There's no fixed independent entity like Atman or Brahman. So we should know that difference. That is what Uchiyama Roshi is talking. And this is something to do with the Koan he introduced as an expression of Buddha Dharma. That is in the beginning of this chapter. This is a conversation between Sekito Kisen and his disciple Tenno Dogo. This conversation appeared in page 141. That is, what is the essential meaning of Buddha Dharma? Then Sekito answered, no gaining, no knowing, nothing to gain, nothing to know. And Dogo asked again, "Can you say anything further?" Then Sekito said, "The expansive sky does not obstruct the floating white clouds." Floating white clouds is somehow appear and stay for a while, changing the shape and disappear. It's like a karmic self. And yet, that is happening within this vast, expansive sky. And this vast, expansive sky is original self. So this is coming and going and always changing. And original self is not personal. Like one hand in this case, not one finger. And as a personal self or karmic self, we are always trying to find something good for me and try to avoid something not good or not beneficial for me. So we have to make a distinction and make choice. That is how we do. And that is the way our life becomes samsara. And Fat Buddha taught it, how can we be released from samsara? That means, how can we live without making such discrimination and making choice? To do so, we need to find this original self, which doesn't seek anything, just be there, here and now. And this is a kind of a common expressions in Zen teachings. Anyway, Uchiyama Roshi continue about these two selves. The personal self is what we usually think of as I, as me, as a Japanese Buddhist priest. But if we peel away the skin of this individual, conditioned self, we lay bare, that makes sense? We lay bare the original universal self. This is a problem for me. I mean, in Japanese it's okay, but in English this is a problem. That means who are this we? It said we peel away the skin of the individual conditioned self. Is this we as conditioned self or original self? How can we peel, if this we is conditioned self, how can we peel the conditioned self? We need to get rid of this person. It's not possible. And how can we, this conditioned self lay bare the original self? This is a problem of English language. I mean, in Japanese, in fact, Uchiyama Roshi said there's no subject, there's no we. And to make a sentence with that subject in English, we have to make it a passive sentence. And like in this passive, this is like when the skin of this individual conditioned self is peeled away, then the original universal self, what is the passive for lay bare, laid bare. But somehow English language doesn't like passive sentence. When I wrote, because in Japanese there's no subject, I try to write, translate into English with a subject, then I have to use passive. Then American people, this is not a good English. So how can we express this? So we need to be careful when we read this kind of sentence. We cannot, peel away ourselves because this is me. And we cannot lay bare this original self because this is a tiny part of the original self. Anyway, that is what Uchiyama Roshi is saying. We need to become free from karmic self and wake to this original self. The personal self is always trying to fulfill its desires. Even my desire to be a good Japanese Buddhist priest, that is a desire. So we cannot live with that desire, even if my desire is not so much self-centered or ego-centered, but still without desire or wish or aspiration, even to aspire to become Buddha. This is a desire or direction. So as a karmic self, we need direction or discrimination and making choice. The personal self is always trying to fulfill its desires. This is the so-called karmic self. Human beings are born with brains. So he said the cause of the problem is our brain. That to think means to make distinction. And this is good or bad, right or wrong. And I should choose this side or not that side. That is what our brain function. And we naturally have a tendency or karma that leads us to fabricate a maze of illusions in our minds. So that is how our life becomes samsara. I think this is what I choose, and that is not I should not go or I should escape from. That is the cause of samsara. Sometimes we are successful and we feel good, and more often it's not so successful or complete failure. Then we feel like this is like hell. That is how our life becomes samsara. And Uchiyama Roshi said that is illusion produced in our brains. This is our individual self, but it's a big mistake to assume that this self is the whole self. So we only see this personal self. We don't see the whole self. The whole self appears when we strip away karmic illusion. Again, subject-object problem. And that means opening the hand of thought. So opening the hand of thought in Uchiyama Roshi's usage of language means don't try based our life on our thinking, because our thinking is always making distinction and create samsara. This is original universal self. So opening the hand of thought is what we do in our zazen. So he's saying our zazen is original self. And in the next paragraph, he said, this original self is not something mysterious or mystical. but when we let go of the thought, original self is there. So let me go to the next paragraph. It said, there is a koan that asks, let me read the entire paragraph. What is your original face before your parents were born? One might naturally assume that there is some special thing called original face, but that is not the right approach. When we open the hand of thought, letting go, the original self is already there. It's not some special mystical state. Don't seek it somewhere else. When we open the hand of thought, what is there in that moment is our original face. When we refrain from grasping our thought, we realize that the force that animates our lives and the force that moves the wind are the very same force. Our lives and the force that moves the wind are the same. Our breath and the wind blowing are one. So he introduced one example of traditional koan in Zen teaching. That is the eraser. Oh, thank you. That is, one might face, what is your original face before your parents were born? That is, 부 모 미쇼 이젠 본来の面目父母未生以前 Izen is before. Misho is not yet born. And Fubo is father and mother. So before our father and mother were born. What is Hondai? This Hondai is same Hondai no Jiko. So Hondai no Jiko is Uchiyama Roshi's kind of a translation into modern Japanese. Hondai no Menmoku. Usually translated as original face. Later, after Song Dynasty China, this expression is used as one. But originally, this first part and second part came from different story. And first one, Hondai no Menmoku, came from the story of the sixth ancestor. When he received transmission and escaped, he had to escape from the monastery. And somehow monks chased after him for 2 months. I don't believe this is a true story. And when he arrived at the peak of the final high mountains, rest of the monks gave up and left and returned, but only one person caught up the Huinam, the sixth ancestor. And Huinam put robe and bowl he received from the fifth ancestor as a kind of evidence of transmission. And they came to return to take those robe and bowls. Huinam put them on the rock, and he hid himself. And this person who came and found bowls and robe and tried to pick up, he couldn't. Then Huinan appeared, and the person said, I didn't come for these things, these robe and bowl, but I'm looking for the Dharma. So he asked Huinan to give a Dharma teaching. And what Huinan said to this person was, not thinking of good, and not thinking of evil or bad. Just at this moment, what is your original face? What is your original face when you don't think good and bad? So the point is not only good and bad, but good and bad is just one example of duality or dichotomy. So when this person don't think in a conceptual way using dichotomies, then what is your true face, original face? And the story said only when he heard that saying, he attained enlightenment, and he became Huinan's disciple. So original face came from this story. And before your father and mother were born is from another story. This is a story about Guishan and his disciple in Japanese, Kyogen. Kyogen in Chinese is something like Shang Yan. This person, Kyogen, was very brilliant person, so he knows everything. But his teacher, Guishan, requested him to say something without using any word you learned from the text or from some teacher. That means something original, not something you memorize. So he could, I think because he had a lot of knowledge, he could give a lectures about Dharma using, millions of words. But his teacher asked him to not to use any words you learned. And all language, all words we can use is what we learned from our birth. So language belongs to this karmic self. So express something, say something using any language, any words, any concept means what is the true self before thinking. So basically that theme is the same thing. What is true reality beyond discrimination or beyond language? And that is called true face or true self. that is a problem, because even in these stories, language is used. That is a problem. And also the famous story about Vimalakirti, the Dharma gate of non-duality. Or the Bodhisattvas say something. These are duality, good and bad, right and wrong, or other dichotomies are duality. But we need to go beyond such separation. When more than 20 Bodhisattvas said such a thing, and those are basically not mistaken. But finally, Manjushri said, what all of you said was right. But by saying so, you make another dichotomies. That is discrimination and beyond discrimination, or reality beyond language and language. And if we think this is good and that is bad, then this is another dichotomy. So this is a problem. And this is the point of this koan. That means if we try to throw the discriminative thinking or conceptual thinking and try not to choose anything, then how can we express this true reality beyond the thinking? There's no way. So that is a basic problem. And so Dogen doesn't like these kind of stories, basically. He didn't like Vimalakirti's silence. The meaning of Vimalakirti's silence can be expressed only with Manjushri's speaking. If Manjushri didn't say anything, then no one could understand the meaning of silence. So somehow we need to find some tool to express reality beyond thinking, using thinking and words. So for Dogen, both are important. But often we say, negate the karmic self and wake up to this true self or reality beyond thinking is enlightenment. But Dogen doesn't think so. Anyway, but if as far as we only see the self as thinking, making choice, then our life is continue to be samsara. How can we see both sides is the point. So when Uchiyama Roshi used this expression, letting go of thought, this is not killing the thought or eliminating the thought, but thoughts are coming and going even when we are sitting. So thought is there, discrimination is there, but we don't think. So within our zazen, both sides are there. But thinking is, we open the hand of thought. So there's no clinging, no grasping. Thoughts are just coming and going. But it's not negated. And also it's not affirmed. So according to Dogen and Uchiyama Roshi, our zazen is itself the expression of the reality, including both sides. And if that is what Uchiyama Roshi is doing here and I'm doing, when I start to talk about zazen, we already miss this part. So we have to, when we hear or read this kind of teaching, we have to translate into the reality. That means we have to sit. To understand there are two sides of self, that is karmic self and original self. Even when we memorize all what Uchiyama is talking, it has nothing to do with this reality. So in order to do this, to really understand and experience and express this, we have to practice of letting go of thought or opening the hand of thought. So he's saying this original self is, it's not something special, mystical state. Some mystical state means we cannot reach our thinking, and that is true. But it cannot, as I said, it cannot be expressed without using language. So both should be there. So don't think it's somewhere else. If we think, we have to reach to find that true face. That means true face is not here, right now, right here. Then that is a mistake. That is already a mistake. Don't seek it somewhere else. When we open the hand of thought, what is there in that moment is our original face. So when we are sit and opening the hand of thought, it's there. This sitting itself manifests both there. When we refrain from grasping our thoughts, we realize that the force that animate our lives, keep our body and mind alive. And the very same force that allow the wind blow, or not only wind blow, but make the plants grow or animals alive. All that energy or force is what is the force, same energy that allow us to live with our thinking mind. So we should not try to seek somewhere else about what is this true face. Our lives and the force that moves the wind are the same. Our breath and wind blows are one. It's already 11 p.m. So let me simply read next paragraph. This is a kind of he talks about a concrete example of what he said. Ordinarily, we think we are alive because our brains are in control. Brain means thinking. This is a grave mistake. The range our brains control is very limited. We drink a cup of tea when our brains conceive of wanting to drink something. We can do this as our brain orders us to. But generally, only things such as our hands, legs, and tongue consistently follow the orders issued by our brains. It's virtually impossible to exercise total control over our hearts or our lungs. We breathe in our sleep. It's not really a personal effort. When we are asleep, we open the hand of thought. We don't think that we have to breathe. Breathing without worrying about it. I breathe even when my brain isn't conscious of it. Don't I? This certainly is me. This force or energy that allow us to breathe even our brain is sleeping. All our life activity of mind and body is the original self. So original self and karmic self are not two different things, but different. That's a problem in our conceptual thinking. Because people arrived, so, and we'll have a ceremony for receiving the bell. So today there's no question and answer. If you have a question, ask me next month. I'm sorry about that.